I had never asked my family for an expensive gift. Not when I turned 21. Not when I turned 30. Not even after I bought my first home without anyone's help. The only thing I wanted for my 35th birthday was something money couldn't buy. One evening together. One dinner. One memory where everyone actually showed up. It sounded simple. Instead, it became the night that changed the way I looked at my family forever. My name is Natalie Brooks. I was 35 years old. A marketing director. Single by choice. Financially stable. And somehow still the person my family assumed would always understand whenever they let me down. Growing up, I was the responsible one. If my younger brother forgot his homework, I reminded him. If my parents worked late, I made dinner. If my grandmother needed groceries, I delivered them. Everyone called me dependable. At first, I loved hearing that. Later, I realized dependable often meant invisible. People thanked me for always being there. Then they quietly started expecting it. I organized holiday dinners. Planned family vacations, remembered birthdays, bought thoughtful gifts. If someone forgot an anniversary, they called me for ideas. If there was an emergency, I was the first phone call. But when it came to celebrating me, something always seemed to come up. My 20th birthday was postponed because my brother had a football tournament. My 30th birthday became a quick lunch because Dad accepted overtime at work. At 33, Mom canceled dinner because my cousin unexpectedly visited from another state. Every year, I smiled and said the same thing. It's okay. We can celebrate another time. Most of the time, another time never arrived. Still, I never complained. I convinced myself family wasn't measured by birthdays. Then I turned 35. For reasons I couldn't explain, this birthday felt important. Maybe because 35 sounded like one of those milestones people remember. Maybe because life had been moving so quickly. Or maybe because I was simply tired of celebrating alone. 6 weeks before my birthday, I created a family group message. Birthday dinner. Saturday. 7 o'clock. I already made reservations. Within minutes, everyone replied. Mom wrote, "We'll absolutely be there." Dad sent a thumbs up emoji. My brother joked, "You'd better order dessert." Even my grandparents confirmed. For the first time in years, I genuinely believed everyone would come. I reserved a private room at Riverside Terrace, a beautiful restaurant overlooking the water. The manager showed me several options. I chose the smallest room. Not because I couldn't afford the larger one. Because I wanted it to feel warm. Comfortable. Like family. The restaurant offered elegant decorations, but I asked them to keep everything simple. Fresh white flowers. Soft candles. A chocolate birthday cake. Nothing extravagant. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I simply wanted one peaceful evening together. The week before my birthday, I called everyone individually. Not to remind them, just to make sure everything still worked. Every conversation ended the same way. We wouldn't miss it. Those words stayed with me all week. Saturday finally arrived. I spent the afternoon getting ready. Nothing fancy. A navy blue dress I'd worn only twice. Small silver earrings my grandmother had given me years earlier. Comfortable shoes. As I looked in the mirror, I smiled. For once, I wasn't organizing someone else's celebration. Someone had promised to celebrate mine. At 6:30, I arrived at the restaurant. The private room looked even better than I'd imagined. 8 place settings surrounded the polished wooden table. My name appeared on the birthday cake in elegant white icing. A waiter welcomed me warmly. "Happy birthday. Your guest should arrive shortly." I thanked him and sat near the window overlooking the river. Outside, families walked along the waterfront. Children laughed. Couples held hands. Everything felt peaceful. At 6:45, my phone buzzed. "Mom, running a little late." I smiled. "Drive safely." 5 minutes later, my brother texted. "Parking is impossible tonight." "No problem." At 7, I poured everyone water so it would be ready when they arrived. 7:05. Still no one. The waiter appeared again. "Would you like to order appetizers?" "I think we'll wait." He smiled politely and walked away. 7:15. Another message from Mom. "Traffic is awful." Dad added, "Be there soon." I looked toward the restaurant entrance every few seconds. Each time the door opened, I expected familiar faces. Instead, strangers walked in laughing with their own families. By 7:30, the candles had nearly burned halfway down. The waiter approached once more. "I'm sorry to ask again. Should I bring your guests' menus back later?" I forced a smile. "Just another few minutes." He nodded kindly. "You let me know." At exactly 7:42, my phone rang. "Mom." Relieved, I answered immediately. Hi. Where are you? Instead of apologizing. She laughed. Not nervously. Not awkwardly. Just casually. Oh, sweetheart. We completely forgot. For several seconds, I couldn't even process what I'd heard. What do you mean, forgot? Dad's voice appeared in the background. We had more important plans. I stared at the 8 empty chairs surrounding the table. More important, Mom sounded cheerful. Emily got surprise concert tickets. Everyone decided to go together. We couldn't say no. I looked at the untouched birthday cake. You knew about my dinner for 6 weeks. I know. But this opportunity came up suddenly. She laughed again. You understand? No. For the first time in my life. I didn't. I'm already sitting at the restaurant. There was a brief silence. Then Mom casually replied. Oh, well, we'll celebrate another day. Before I could answer, she hung up. I slowly lowered my phone onto the table. The room suddenly felt enormous. 8 empty chairs. 8 untouched glasses. 8 folded napkins. And 1 birthday cake waiting for people who had chosen somewhere else. The waiter quietly stepped inside. He looked toward the empty seats before looking back at me. Will anyone else be joining you tonight? I swallowed the lump in my throat, then quietly answered. No, they've made other plans. He nodded sympathetically. I'm very sorry. So am I. As I looked around that silent room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg for explanations. But before the night was over, I was going to share one simple photograph that would quietly tell the truth more powerfully than any angry message ever could. After the waiter quietly cleared the untouched plates, he carefully placed the birthday cake in a box for me to take home. I'm sorry your evening turned out this way, he said gently. I smiled the best I could. Thank you. As I walked through the restaurant, I noticed families laughing together, friends taking birthday photos, and children running between tables. Normally, those scenes would have made me smile. That night, they reminded me of everything I had hoped this evening would become. Outside, the cool night air felt strangely comforting. Instead of driving straight home, I walked along the river for nearly an hour. The city lights reflected across the water like tiny stars. I kept replaying my mother's words. We had more important plans. Not, we're sorry. Not, can we make this right? Just a simple statement that somehow made me feel smaller than I ever had before. By the time I reached my apartment, I had stopped crying. Not because I felt better, because something inside me had quietly changed. For years I had protected my family's image. Whenever friends asked why my parents missed another gathering, I always invented excuses. They've been busy. They weren't feeling well. Something unexpected came up. This time, I didn't want to lie anymore. Not to embarrass anyone. Simply to stop pretending everything was fine. I opened my phone and looked at the photograph I had taken before anyone was supposed to arrive. A beautifully decorated table. 8 empty chairs. A birthday cake with 35 candles. No people. I stared at the image for several minutes. Then I wrote a caption. Not angry. Not sarcastic. Just honest. Tonight, I reserved a table for the people I love most. Sometimes empty chairs speak louder than words. Happy 35th birthday to me. I pressed post. Then I turned my phone upside down and went to bed. The next morning, I woke to the sound of constant notifications. Hundreds. Then thousands. People from all over the country had shared the post. Complete strangers wrote comments like, I've been there. This made me cry. You deserved better. I hope next year is different. I hadn't expected any of it. The post wasn't popular because it was dramatic. It spread because it reflected a feeling so many people quietly carried. By mid-morning, my phone started ringing. Mom, Dad, my brother, my aunt, my cousin. I ignored every call. Finally, my grandmother left a voicemail. Honey, please answer. I think your parents finally understand. Later that afternoon, my best friend, Megan, came over carrying coffee and pastries. She hugged me before saying a single word. I saw the post. So did everyone else. I sighed. I didn't post it to shame anyone. I know. You posted it because it was true. We spent the afternoon talking. For the first time, I admitted something I had never said aloud. This wasn't really about one birthday. It was about 35 years of always coming second. Megan nodded. I figured. That evening, my parents arrived at my apartment carrying balloons, flowers, and several expensive gift bags. Mom smiled nervously. We brought your presents. I looked at everything in silence. Dad cleared his throat. We also made reservations for next weekend. I gently shook my head. I don't need another reservation. Mom frowned. But it's your birthday. My birthday was yesterday. The room became quiet. Dad finally spoke. You embarrassed us. I looked directly at him. I embarrassed you. People online think we're terrible parents. I couldn't help smiling sadly. They're reacting to what happened, not what I posted. Mom crossed her arms. You should have talked to us first. I did. I called. You laughed. Neither of them answered. Instead, I picked up one of the gift bags and handed it back. I don't want expensive presents. I wanted your time. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We made a mistake. I nodded. You did. But the mistake wasn't missing dinner. It was believing I'd always accept being forgotten. A week later, my grandmother invited everyone to her house. She insisted the family needed an honest conversation. No excuses. No changing the subject. Just honesty. When everyone arrived, Grandma surprised us by placing one printed photograph in the middle of the table. The same photograph I had posted online. 8 empty chairs. She quietly looked around the room. Tell me what you see. No one answered. Finally, my younger brother spoke. I see the seat that should have been mine. My sister quietly added. I see promises we broke. Then my mother began crying. I see my daughter eating birthday dinner alone. Grandma nodded slowly. Good. Now we're finally looking at the same picture. For the next 3 hours, conversations happened that should have taken place years earlier. I talked about canceled birthdays, forgotten promotions, graduations people left early, family gatherings that were always rearranged around someone else's schedule. I realized something surprising. My parents hadn't intentionally decided I mattered less. They had simply become so accustomed to believing I would always understand that they stopped noticing how often they disappointed me. That realization didn't erase the hurt, but it explained it. Over the following months, small things began changing. Mom started calling just to ask how I was doing instead of asking for favors. Dad invited me to lunch without needing help fixing something first. My brother apologized privately. I should have noticed sooner. I smiled. You noticed now. That's enough. The following year, my 36th birthday approached. I didn't make any reservations. I didn't remind anyone. I simply planned to spend the day hiking with Megan. At exactly 8 that morning, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my entire family stood outside. My parents, my siblings, my grandparents. Each of them held breakfast instead of presents. Mom smiled through tears. We wanted to be first this time. Dad quietly added. No concerts. No excuses. No empty chairs. We spent the entire day together. Not because anyone felt guilty anymore. Because everyone finally understood that showing up is the greatest gift a family can give. Looking back, people often ask whether posting that photograph was worth it. My answer is always yes. Not because it went viral. Not because strangers took my side. But because one honest picture accomplished what years of silent disappointment never could. It forced everyone, including me, to stop pretending everything was fine. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with a dramatic argument. Sometimes it begins with quietly telling the truth. And sometimes 8 empty chairs can teach a family more about love than a room full of words ever could.